So Snuffleupagus was originated by the great Jerry Nelson. And for the listeners who aren't aware of who that is, unless they're really good friends of mine, Jerry Nelson was the original puppeteer who did The Count, Harry, Floyd, Robin, Gobo, Sherlock Hemlock, Crazy Harry, so many Muppet characters. And he originated Snuffleupagus. And, he's such a legendary performer. He's got an amazing voice to perform these characters. Did Jerry give you any advice about performing Snuffleupagus? I'll take that as a yes.
Yes, he did. I was pretty young at the time, wet behind the ears, you might say. And the producer said, oh, Mr. Nelson will be over here at a recording session. You can go over and talk to him and meet him and ask him about Snuffy. At that point, I had been cast in the role. I hadn't done anything yet. The first day of shooting was still sometime in the future. So I met he and Jim. I think Frank was there too, at some recording studio. And I said, hey, Mr. Nelson, sir, you got any suggestions about how to do this Snuffleupagus character? He looked at me and said, yeah, kid, start smoking and start drinking right now. That was the advice.
So that's the secret to doing Snuffy, huh?
Yes, I did not take his advice though. I feel bad about it to this day. But
oh dear.
I found different ways of of getting the gravel on the voice. And
another fun fact, of course, in that scene where Spamela is dancing to a go-go song, the shtick was, it was Wall Street Wonderings with Ernest Pleth. And of course, Ernest Pleth is Jerry Nelson. And so, and Leslie will tell you this story when you interview her, but he was such, as I mentioned before, he was such a mentor to her. Their dressing rooms were right next to each other on Muppets Tonight. And, he'd help her with monitor stuff and such, but he'd also play guitar and sing every morning. Every morning she could hear him. And now, again, fast forward to 2009, I got to work with Jerry on his own CD of his own songs for a CD called Truro Daydreams.
Yep, I have that album on my phone.
Oh, great. Well, he had always wanted to do, a CD of original songs, and not kid songs, not Sesame Street songs, definitely his own songs. And some of those he was even working on back on Muppets Tonight, like singing in the dressing room. So I'm like, wow, this is, again, stars aligned. We recorded the album at NOLA in Manhattan. We had great musicians for that. We had some of the guys in the past iteration of the Sesame Street Band playing drums on that. We had the guys playing horns were in the Sesame Street Band for years. And of course, Jerry playing guitar, and then his good friend, and I'll forget his name, but I should break out my Truro Daydream CD. But having his guitarist there, having his bass player there from Truro, was really just such a cool vibe. And then and Mike Renzi was actually playing keyboards on that too. So like the piano that you hear and all the piano tracks that you hear in the keyboard, it's like a Wurlitzer keyboard on Tides. That's Mike Renzi playing piano. So I mean, I'm just standing there just digging it. I mean, I'm not conducting, I would only conduct when we had to do a song that had a upbeat feel, and I was, like I do with puppeteers, like cue the horns, cue the drummer, cue the bass player. So I'm just standing there like floating on the tides while they're recording this song. And we only, because of Jerry's condition at the time, he's on oxygen, and we were very cognizant and sensitive to his stamina, getting through. We basically booked the studio for 2 days, and we knew, we'll see how it goes the first day, how many hours we get. Do we need to come back a second day? If we do, let's make it a half day, which we did. It turned out to be a day and a half. And Jerry was just in such
hold on, a day and a half of recording the whole album?
Yeah. Just
wow.
And most of it was probably more than on the first day. No, well, we kind of split it up, because on the second day, I remember there were specific people, I think, that were there. Maybe like Fran Brill was there for the Big Bad Wolf song. I know Stephanie and Leslie and Tyler were all there I think on both days when they did background vocals. So what we would do is, we would run a song a couple of times, rehearse it a little bit, record 2 passes, give Jerry a break. I'd work with the vocalists on the background, music or whatever, or the background vocals. So but he was just in amazing spirits the whole time and not nervous. I mean, that's one of the things about Jerry performing as long as he did, just as a guitarist and singing, whether it's in a dressing room or with friends, or, you know, I don't know that he really performed on stage. I'm sure there's people that can answer that, as himself, not as a Muppet, not behind a scene of a puppet or two-headed monster or whatever. You know, this is just him singing. And he had such an incredible voice just on his own. And I think, you know, he had this specific quality to his vocal cords. And I think anybody who watches, you know, is a big fan of Muppets in general, always knows when it's Jerry as an AM, as a background character, and they hear that
like puppeteering wise, or
voice wise, because he just has this unique quality. And yet that character voice that he does can go anywhere. It can go bass, it can go treble, it can go Robin, you know, it's just amazing range. I think Jerry too, what blew me away about those sessions was his musicality, for one thing, his ease with just sitting there, but also, you know, the level of musicality to sit there, you're under pressure, as it were, to record this album. I mean, for anybody, that's pressure, right? Headphones on, headphones off. He's playing guitar during the entire time. We didn't bring him back to say, okay, let's do the guitar part for this. Let's do that. We'll overdub the guitar later. He was doing everything live. So, and plus we had chairs set up at NOLA so that there was, you know, I think at the most, maybe there were like 15 or 20 people in the room listening. It was a concert. It was a live concert. And Stephanie and Craig did a wonderful job of videotaping a lot of that. A lot of that is online. And I think every once in a while they'll pan back and show the people listening. So for Jerry, it was a performance too. You know, it wasn't just, here's these songs I've always wanted to record and get out in the world. It was, I'm performing for these people. So he was so comfortable doing that. And then once I finished editing and mixing and everything, we had a little get together at the Carriage House, the Jim Henson Carriage House, and he did a little CD release party. Aww. And played live for that as well. And I think we only did one song from the CD, but he just did a bunch of other songs. He had his bass player, had his guitar player, and I played a little snare and bongos for that. But it was, that was, you know, as far as me and musical experiences go, that's a day and a half I will never forget. And I got to actually go up to his house and we did overdubs of the animals on Noah's Ark on his dining room table. I went up in August. We recorded the album in June. I went up to his place in August. It was seriously hot. It was 90 plus degrees, had all the windows open. And I had all my gear set up on his dining room table and a mic near him. And he did all the animal voices in Noah's Ark, and a couple other things too. We had done some extra vocals, overdubbing a few parts that I wanted him to sing, you know, in addition to his lead vocal. So yeah, it was a dream.
The one that makes me laugh consistently, and I did probably the least volume of work with him, but every time he did it, it always killed me, was the Count with his Stellone and a Levone, you know, because I used to laugh with Nelson.
Jerry Nelson.
Jerry Nelson. I used to laugh with Jerry because, well, Jerry used to come and smoke like a chimney, but he was so funny. And I would sit there and I would laugh because of Levone, he doesn't do the V, but 12, he does perfectly. I go, how come it's not 12? He goes, it doesn't sound funny. He goes, 11 sounds funny.
Okay, yeah, I think I get it. Let me see if I can break it down. I've been learning how to do all these voices since I was a kid. The Count was one of the first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
See, 5. 7. He would do 5 good. 5. Yeah. He would do a good V.
I never even realized that.
6. And then he goes, 7.
I always noticed the sewing as a kid.
7, exactly. And so when you say, dude, I have a favorite character, the one that always made me laugh was when Jerry would count. And because I ended up doing a lot of these toys and whatever, I mean, I can't tell you how many times he counted for us.
I'm sure he might.
Yeah, but I always got a kick out of his cell. But 5 is no V problem.
So Paul had mentioned that Jerry was a big mentor to you. Can you talk a little bit about what you learned from him?
Yes. Jerry was life-changing to me, because you can imagine being in that situation, and with those greats, I was awestruck every day. And but I was also a comedian and entertainer, so I was used to being able to, like, find humor in everything, even your most terrifying and scary situations. So I was learning. So I had a positive attitude in the midst of all this overwhelming. And when I had a dressing room, so there was a dressing room, and then there was a bathroom, and there was Jerry's dressing room, and all the Muppet performers had dressing rooms. So I was living with my buddy Wayno, and I would commute in super early to beat the traffic in Los Angeles. And I get early into my dressing room, and Jerry would come into his, and every morning he would play his guitar and sing. And I would just lean up against a bathroom wall, and I'd listen to him, and he just, like, it was great. And so we'd come out of the dressing room like, hi, that was a great song, and blah, blah, blah. And we talk, and Jerry was like, I think he liked to sing. I'm like, yeah, I sang with a big band and blah, blah. I was a singer at the time too, as well. And he just kind of took me under his cape, his bat wing. And
under the Count's cape.
Yes. And I think also too, it would have been the age of his daughter. And so I think he liked my energy. And I pick angel cards all the time. It's just something I do. And I would pick an angel card. I'm like, do you want one? He goes, yeah. So I'd have an angel card for the day. But Jerry would pick me to be as an assist. Because you imagine you have all these guys who are awesome, and then you have all these other male puppeteers that have been working for a long time, and they pick right hands. It's like kickball or in sports. I was the last picked all the time. It's like, who's gonna have this person? But Jerry always picked me. Nice. And so I always would right hand him. I learned from him. He got to know me, as he'd always say, what are you doing this weekend? I'm like, well, I have a gig. I'm doing this. Like, he got to know me. Like, he'd ask about things that I was writing, or, my characters and stuff. And we had that love. So I felt, it's the other guys, everybody was great. It's just, they had so much happening. They were lead players, they didn't have time to see this little weird thing that was brought in, so, and they were great too. They were all positive and supportive too, but just Jerry was life-changing. I felt like I was glued to him, and he's just a genius. He was a genius.
And he also, one thing I noticed about him in terms of puppeteering and voice is that he had a certain way of doing it. Like, for example, every one of his characters had a different voice. Like, the Count sounds like this. Sherlock Hemlock sounds like this. Herbert Birdsfoot sounds like this. And I've noticed that you have come up with many different voices for your characters, and you gave a few of them earlier. Like, you were talking about a couple of voices that you created.
Yeah, Ginger Sprite. I don't know if you saw Johnny and the Sprites.
I did, yeah.
Splash and Bubbles.
I put both of those in here in the Q&A.
So, yeah, to me, I mean, I think Jerry and I, like, would, your voice is like an instrument. And so you try to find as many notes to play as possible. And when you watch somebody perform, you want to make sure that when they see something, that it's an orchestra. So if someone has a really high voice, then I'll pick a lower voice or something. So it depends on what we're doing.
That sounds like the Countess.
You know what I mean? Well, yeah, I did do the Countess one. So, I mean, so I think that's what it is, also being able to sing, you know that you have to hit all kinds of notes, and, so I just think, yeah, he's definitely my hero.
There's another character that, as I was doing my research for this, that I noticed you seem to use a lot, and I'm wondering if maybe you created that character. It was a character that Jerry did, Sir John Feelgood.
Oh, I created that, and I'm the only. nobody wanted to write for him but me, and I loved that character. And Jerry, well, I think it's a hard character to, you know, it grew out of my love of Sir John Gielgud and whatever, but the idea of having, and Jerry was just so great, and Jerry really wanted to do it. So Sir John Feelgood, that's pretending, and he would show up on Sesame Street, and he had a book, How to Pretend, and he would give a Big Bird acting lessons on how to pretend, and then they sang a song, That's Pretending, but it was so much fun, and Jerry was just so great as Sir John. It's a great Muppet with the cape, and yeah, he was just so brilliant as Sir John. Just great.
Now, when you create characters like Sir John Feelgood and Grand High Triangle Lover and Baby Bear, do you usually have in mind who you'd like to have perform them?
No, you create this character, and then usually they would pick the right person to to play it. No, I didn't know who was going to play Baby Bear. I had a feeling that I think I wanted Jerry to play Sir John. I might have mentioned it. I don't remember. Sometimes you'll say, could you give this to Jerry? Because this would be great. And Jerry said that Sir John reminded him, like, sometimes you go into a bar and it'd be one old actor sitting at the bar and you'd hear his voice like ringing out across the room, talking about his career, on the big stage. And so Jerry was just such a joy.
I did get to know Jerry a little bit. I didn't officially work with him on anything. I was, most of the time that he was there, when I came on the scene, he was already, he had already stopped puppeteering.
Right.
But I did get to hang with him a little bit, and I did get to chat with him.
Okay.
So we did have some one-on-one time together, which was nice.
What was he like?
He was very chill. He was very laid back. He he wasn't in the best of health at that time either, and I think he tended to sort of just kind of come in and out when he was needed. He didn't hang tremendously, but I remember him being very chill. Someone you would want to sit at a bar with and have a drink with. For sure, one of those kind of guys. So.
Sounds like Jerry. From what I know about him, Jerry was one of my heroes as a kid. He was actually one of the first. It's interesting. The Count, Bert, and Ernie were actually some of the first characters I ever saw on Sesame Street back in 1999.
Yes. Oh, I love Jerry's. Jerry's. I mean, what a great actor he was, and talk about voices. I mean, he was something else.
Yeah, my favorite Sesame Street character is actually one that he originated, Harry.
Oh yes, I love Harry.
Me too. Yeah. Harry was always my favorite.
Yeah.